Hi everyone, my name's PK. Here I have Chris Tran, who's a client of the Property Investment Accelerator. He's just bought his sixth properties onto his seventh property. And, him and his partner, they're investing in real estate not to get rich. They're just investing to create a lifestyle where they're not tied to their 9 to 5. And as we record this session today, he's actually in WA near Margaret River, and just you can see his caravan behind him. And it's just having the time of his life, and that's what his assets, which he's worked hard to achieve, has afforded him that sort of convenience and freedom to go off for 6 months or a year and do this. And really, we're going to dive deep into his story today. And he's a super nice guy as well. You'll get to know that, and especially around renovation, because that's really his, I would say, unique strength, and that's really how he's been able to catapult his property investing really, really far. Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK, and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you. Without further ado, I just want to invite you and congratulate you, Chris, for everything you've achieved so far.
Thank you very much, PK, for the awesome introduction, and thank you very much for having the time to have me on board. So I guess, did you want me to start with my story? Is that
Yeah, please, please. Like, what's your? I always ask, what's your property background
yeah,
and your
okay.
experience.
Okay, cool. I guess the long story short, I grew up in a family of six, so it consists of myself, three sisters, mum and dad. I was the only one that was born in Australia, in Geelong, to be specific. My parents, the rest of my family were born in Vietnam. They came here by boat, and look, growing up, I saw the struggles they went through in life. My dad worked as a labourer, farmer. He also had, he's also actually very hands-on. Actually, he worked in the U.S. Army in Vietnam over during the war, and I guess growing up, we just always had these cars that broke down. So he was constantly fixing his cars, and as a young kid, I was just very interested, so I just tagged along, and just I guess that's how I got really hands on into it. And from there, um, look, my family wanted me to go to university, as most I think Vietnamese families wish their child to do.
Yep.
Finished the degree. I had a bachelor degree of commerce. I got the job, but 2 weeks in, I knew it wasn't for me. I was like, nah, this ain't gonna
That
work
quick,
out.
huh?
Yeah. So from there, I was kind of scratching my head, and then I did a electrical apprenticeship, and what inspired me to do that was my brother-in-law. He was a industrial sparky for Toyota, and that actually inspired me to be a industrial electrician as well. So fortunate enough, I was picked up a really, really good apprenticeship with a local mob in Geelong, and they were really good to work for and really good training. So I was very fortunate for that. Um, and from there, I guess that's where it kind of began. So my first property was in November 2015, to be precise. Bought that. During the time, there wasn't much information at all on property. I remember back there was doom and gloom with the media. I was confused. I was like on the fence about buying versus not buying. Back then, I was a younger boy, didn't have much experience. I didn't really have anyone to lean against or get info from, especially from my family. Um, so and there just wasn't much information out there back then. Like there was no influencers, there wasn't much YouTubers, or it was just wasn't really information at all. All
Mhm.
the information I got was from real estate agents. So I asked so many questions, heaps and heaps of questions. Um, but they do have an agenda, to try to swindle you, sell this house and land, or to try to sell you something. But I was fortunate enough to meet one or two really genuine ones. Um, and every info they gave me, I would cross-reference it, cross-check it with the broker or accountant or the relevant profession.
Right.
And yeah, this guy was spot on. Like he gave me the best answers. It was very genuine, and still in contact with him today. Funny thing is, I've never bought a house from him previously, but hopefully things will change one day. So yeah, back then, 2015, I could have bought a nicer house, I guess. I could have afforded a more expensive house in a better area. What I chose back then was something that was very, very original. So I bought a very original house that was heavily undervalued because it was just very original, needed clean up, and I guess I could see through the potential and the gap between unrenovated and renovated, and I went for that. Um, First project, it was a bit greener. It took me about 2 to 3 months to do the whole works. Like that's inside, outside. Um, the reno itself was pretty basic. It was just a remodel of the layout, knocked down a few walls to open it up, and just new floors, new paints, new lights, aircon to make it livable, I guess. And
Right.
got it revalued. Sorry, I spent about, I reckon it was about 15 to 20, 15 roughly. I did pretty much everything myself. Got
Nice.
revalued. It was came back at 90K more. So I'm like, wow, like that was instant equity. Like I just made a huge amount of invisible money in a very short period of time. And reflecting back, and I was like, mate, that took me a very long time to save that deposit. Like it took me many, many years of work, and especially after tax, you're not left with much.
Yeah.
However, I was very fortunate enough to live at home during the time, so that allowed me to save money. But being on apprentice wages, it was quite tough at the time. So yeah, from there, we
Was
bought
that
that
one in
house.
Geelong,
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah,
That
yeah,
yeah. So it was like
yeah.
local to where you lived.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
there was in Geelong. So I did get lucky as well, in all honesty. So I did create the equity, and shortly after that, the market in Geelong really started to take off.
Yeah,
So
it did.
that was a combination of myself manufacturing the own equity. So I made about 90K that I did myself, and the rest was the market uplift. Yeah, the
Mhm.
house didn't get better. It just grew over time with the market.
I just want to
And
get a sense because obviously you've put in sweat equity and that's really worked for you in this
yeah,
property and why not? Because you have the skills and the experience and the talent and everything. And I don't know if this is like a question you can answer, but let's
mhm,
say someone didn't have the trades background that you did. You spent about 15, 20K. Do you
mhm.
reckon the renovation cost would have been double that had you been an ordinary investor and had to outsource to like a electrician, a carpenter, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.? Is that about right? Like double the cost, so you've made 90K in equity gain, and it would have cost you 40K, or is that ballpark not
Yeah,
correct?
I reckon that's a genuine figure. I reckon if I did outsource some figures, like tradies, like carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you'll probably be more about the 40K mark. So you are still making almost $2 for every dollar you're putting in.
Yeah,
Like it's worked out, so you put in 40, let's say, and you're making 90K back in equity. So
right.
it's still a really good return, put it that
Yeah.
way,
I just wanted
especially,
to highlight that for everyone because it's like you don't have to be Chris to get these results. Like Chris has got
no,
incredible
no.
because of his, he's making the most of what he has, but anyone can do this as well, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So I guess that was my first one. I guess back then I didn't have as much money to play with, so I did most of myself.
Hmm.
Second one, I bought actually, well, this is the first mistake I made. I bought down the street. I bought the second one, and that one I had a bit more equity to play with. So I started to weigh up time versus reward. So I started to outsource a little bit more of the jobs to local tradesmen, and I got the reno done in 3 weeks.
Brilliant.
Yeah, down the road, you're gonna laugh at this. It's pretty much the floor plan was exactly the same as this first house.
Okay.
So the first one took me about a lot longer than the second one. But the second one I learnt outsource, and I got it done in 3 weeks. Again, made a lot of equity on that. Can't remember exactly how much I made on it. I think I spent about 25K on that one, roughly. And yeah, I guess from there, I uh, just sucked out the equity. And what else did I do after? Oh, then became a tradesman after that shortly. And then my wife and I traveled all over Europe for 4 months.
Nice.
Um, so it was very, very enjoyable back then. And then we went all over Europe, came back. I went back to the same employer. They were really, really good in that
That's awesome.
avenue. And then we went to buy more properties because we had enough pay slips when we got back after Europe. We then bought a house and built, also in Geelong.
Mhm.
So we completed that build, had a lot of equity in the bank again after it got completed. We bought another PPLR, also in Geelong.
So now
And
you've
this is
got
kind of
3 investment properties and 1 principal place of residence, all in Geelong.
correct,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
We started to look into diversifying, and wow, okay, this is very interesting. And it just kind of like dive into a little more info and just do a bit more research. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I went to Maria, my wife Maria. I was like, hey, we should actually look into Interstate, and we had to look at domain real estate, but we lacked a little bit of confidence there. So we engaged a BA. We bought in Rockhampton,
Mhm.
um, and the yield was really, really good. It was so easy to hold. And also the capital growth was awesome as well. It was really, really good. And I guess it's been a long time in the making, but we had a plan to travel eventually. We weren't sure when. Um, so I slowly set up the caravan in the background. We also got married last year as well. And so we had a lot of things going on. So
Yeah.
we wanted to make the most of our uh, value for money, I guess. Yeah. So we then thought to ourselves, this is our last chance to buy before we pull the pin on work. So we were going to use the BA again, but we wanted to travel as much as possible. And when you're not working, you think a little bit differently because BA fees, I was like, oh, that could be like my whole diesel bill for the whole app of Australia.
Yeah, right.
So that was the whole reason why this next purchase we decided to ourselves. We invested in your course, of
Mhm.
course. And yeah, look, we dive into it. There's a lot to digest, a lot of info to take on and comprehend and really understand the metrics and the theory behind it all. But once you understand it, you're like, wow, it paints a clear picture. So from after your course, we purchased in Warnbo, which is in the Rockingham region of south of Perth, I guess you could say. And yeah, 12 or a year later, it's grown a significant amount on the house data. It shows up as 29%. So we made a significant growth. And we actually visited the house a couple of weeks ago in person and super, super happy with it. It's a lot better in real life than in photos, put it that way.
Okay.
So we were absolutely stoked with it. Met the tenants as well. They were really, really cool. We had a few TLC things to do. It was like an old little uh, dodgy looking pergola that would be a grapevine. So we had to tear that down because it was a bit of a hazard. And they were very nice enough to give us a chop out on their days off. And in return, we just got them a dishwasher, some wine, some chocolate, and I guess everyone's happy and they start following our travel page. So yes, there's a win-win. Um, and yeah, so I guess it's look, we're really chill people. We treat it like a business. You have expenses incoming. You got little niggles like hot water breaks down or PowerPoint breaks, or it's just the cost of running a business. You got to look at it at the look at the bigger picture. Like if you're making 100K in equity, a couple $1,000 in TLC is literally a small expenditure to pay. And
Yeah.
I guess that's where we are today. And we so today where we are, it's kind of the fruits of our labor. We're just taking a step back. So we are unemployed right now. We are traveling full time in a caravan. And yeah, it's just nice to just to see the world and see what's in your backyard. Australia is awesome. And here we are. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that story, and also like it. And we were talking previously about this as well. How you kind of built a bit of a relationship with your tenant. I don't know if you also have a relationship with the other tenants, but at least with this Perth
Yeah.
one, like you just helped them out. You fixed up the house a little bit, gave them a dishwasher, chocolate, etc. It's like it's really nice to see. It's like we're of course we're property investors when we treat it as a business, like you said. At the end of the day, we're doing this to get ahead, to make a lifestyle for ourselves and our family. That doesn't mean it needs to be like a win-lose situation for other people. And it sounds like you're really like taking care of people who are living in your property. Do you mind like sharing some details about like the deal? So like how much did you buy it for? What's it renting for? Has the rent increased? Like stuff like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So when we bought that house in Warnbo last year, um, the market was hot. It was very, very hot. So we our strategy was to make it really, really easy for the vendor. Okay. We had pre-approval and all the ad hoc stuff ready to go. So when we were shopping, when we were putting an offer, we know we were serious. We're not stuffing around here. It was very hot. So we bought one that needed a little bit of liquor paint, and I factored that into the price. We paid, oh, our initial offer was 515, and the building and pest inspection came up with a bunch of lists. They were very minor items. It just doesn't really cost much money, but it's cost me a time to do. So the BNP came with quite a big list, and then we hit him up. Hey, look, this is going to cost 15 grand or more. Um, so then we counter offered at 500K, and the vendor, they just wanted to move on and just move on with the sale, I guess, and they accepted the offer of 500. So towards the end, we got the house for 500K, and we rented it out for 550, a local real estate agent. So it is still negatively geared. I'm not too sure exactly how much. I have to look at my spreadsheet.
Hmm.
But our main goal was to create a our main focus was equity, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
equity was our main objective here, which we believe we nailed. And yeah,
Amazing. You nailed it. Yeah. And just for full transparency for anyone who's watching or listening, like this doesn't mean you just go off right now as we're, in 2024 and go off and warm bro. It's probably not the best time to buy there anymore. Although if you want to, feel free, and you're just giving Chris more capital growth as the market rises. But no, in all seriousness, you've done really well, and it's grown 29%? So that's what, like
grown a
110,000?
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's according to on the house data.
Right, right.
Um, in real life, it's probably grown 120, 130K, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
in
sure.
real life. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
Um, yeah. So
And even the one that you bought in Rockhampton, I mean, I know where you bought. Do you mind if I share the suburb?
yeah, yeah, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah, go,
Frenchville,
go.
right? Frenchville
Yeah.
is one. It was one of my favorite suburbs. I think in 2020. I think it was like I think it was early 2022. Um, I had like the folks from realestate.com.au interview me about like the best suburbs to buy in Queensland. And I was like, oh, should I talk about Frenchville? It was like my favorite, and like dozens
Yeah.
of clients had bought there. And I was like, oh, to hell with it. So there's like a real estate article about me talking about Frenchville, and like, it's not just me who predicted it. I think a lot of people got Rockhampton correct. And how much has that grown? Of course, that was bought previous to the Perth one, but how much has that gone up by?
On the house, I reckon it's grown 20% on the house. Don't quote me exactly because it's been a while since I had a look at it, but I think it's grown about 20%. from today to last year.
Last year.
Um, but before that, I'm not too sure. I haven't really tracked on it, but it's grown quite a significant amount.
Yeah,
What I love about Frenchville is the yields were so good. It was so good. That
yeah.
is actually that is a positive geared house from day dot. Yeah.
Amazing,
So
amazing.
that was for 420 and rented out for 580 a week.
Yeah, that's so good. And I'm pretty confident. I mean, what I'm seeing, not just amongst clients, but just in general, is that in the Perth market or even down in the Rockingham area, you're seeing that the rents are increasing like 20 to 30%. At least they did in the last 12 months. So, of course, you want to make sure that the tenant is still okay with it, or if you get a new
Mm,
tenant in, that it's still affordable. But that's the great thing about Perth. The wages or incomes are so high that it's still one of the most affordable markets, both from a rental perspective and from a housing, purchase perspective compared to the East Coast capital cities. And that means it's still got so much, how do you say, like fuel in the fire. The problem is there's just hardly anything for sale or hardly anything for rent. And that's what's causing renters a whole lot of issue, not necessarily in all locations, just the actual rental amount. So, that's gonna go up from 550. I would be surprised if in your next renewal, it didn't have a 6 in front of it. Of course, as a landlord, it's up to you,
yeah.
what you want to what you really want to do, but
Yeah.
I think that's possible. Um,
And while we're here, like part of this trip was we went all over SA as well, like Adelaide, everywhere in every single regional town. We basically had unlimited time, so we went through pretty much every single suburb. We got push bikes on the back of our caravans. So we even just my wife and I and the dog, we just go around and just the different suburbs. You can see from street level. One of the most important ones for us was terrain. Different hills, different elevations, the low points,
yeah,
to know where, okay, there's pockets where it has views that you wouldn't consider or know unless you were a local or you had a chat with a property manager
property
or you just
manager.
there in person. Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
the main reason. Adelaide's very nice. And we did the same throughout every regional town in WA, or the big ones I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And we went to a few house opens because we are in the market to buy a house. And wow, there is a lot of competition. There was one house had like 50 groups, I reckon. Like it was bizarre. Like there was a massive line. There was no car parks on the streets because it was all taken up, and it was hot, and it was nice to see in person. And yeah, it was just
Nice.
very
Do
practical.
you reckon that, those 50 groups, were they like, of course, I'm sure you didn't talk to everyone, but do you get a sense that they were mostly owner occupiers, or were there like investors? Like, did you see lots of kids or families or husband, wives, or what was your sense?
Majority of them were locals because they had kids and the husband and the wife and the mums as well. Some were probably first homeowners, I would say.
Right.
They look locals. There were a couple BAs here there, but mainly the BAs are usually on the phone. Like they don't usually go in
Yeah.
person. They usually do it virtually. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a really good point that you made as well. That when you are buying from the East Coast, you're buying in the West Coast, or let's say you're on the West Coast buying East Coast or interstate or remotely. It's so important to get that local on the ground, boots on the ground intel. And of course, you don't need to go there to get that, but speaking to really good property managers, speaking to like really good building and pest inspector, assessing the nature of the house, etc. It's really invaluable. Did you find, I don't know what this question's gonna be, but like, you bought the property while you were not there yet. Um, did you find that it lived up to your expectations? Did it give you more confidence, I guess, in this concept of buying interstate and relying on data, both quantitative and qualitative, and the property managers to get the job done? Or when you got there and saw your house, you were like, "Oh, this street's kind of rough. It's not really what it said online, or the data in terms of flood maps or Google Maps and what the property manager said doesn't seem it seems a bit sketchy." What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. So our first impression, was exceeded. Like we went there, we drove around, but wow, these. These beaches are really, really nice, and of course, it faces the west coast, so the sunsets are just mind blowing. They are so nice to see. It lived to my expectations. Of course, before we bought the house, as taught in your course, we did check with property managers and all the data points and the metrics. They all tick the right boxes. Didn't have an issue renting it. It was listed at an awkward time over Christmas period, but it just went quite very, very quick. There was a huge demand for renters. So what I saw from a data point of view, based that was taught in your course, it met up to expectations or exceeded.
Got
It
it.
was a very hot market. We actually didn't get a proper floor plan of the house. We got a virtual tour and a dodgy looking sketch, which wasn't to scale whatsoever.
Okay.
Um, so when we first went inside the house, we were, wow, this rumpus room is way bigger than I thought it was. It
Right.
was actually a lot bigger. And all the fixtures, like the kitchen, the bathroom, it was a lot better, a lot better. It was actually a very pleasant surprise time to send your property managers for tape measure and measure the width by length. So it was just so hot that if he did do that and um, in a hot market, it just won't work. So we just have to rely on photos or quality photos, virtual tour, and just bounce off your metrics, cross-reference it with a building inspector, and yeah, from there you have your answer.
Yeah. And I think, as everyone's got a different risk appetite, but as long as you get that due diligence done, you get the property manager ultimately to look at it, or at least, give you a sense of what it's all about. You get of course, a building and pest inspector through, then that's enough, It's not like I can't speak for you because 'cause you're a tradesperson, but it's not like I can add any more value by physically walking through the house. Personally, I'll be like, "Well, I mean, looks good," whereas there might be termites behind the walls or there might be some sort of structural damage. I can't see it. We have to rely on the professionals, and then that's in fact what, like you said, the buyer's agents are on the phone as well. They're not there in person most of the time, so we can just do that ourselves if we have the confidence, skills and knowledge and toolkit to do so. And I want to touch on like your partner. She's I think you were mentioning last week when I was speaking with you, Chris, that she's originally from or heritage is from Bosnia, if I'm not incorrect. How closely do you guys work together in your property investing, or are you like the person who takes it forward and she supports, or are you doing it in parallel, or what's the dynamic like?
Okay, so we started off with myself, and then I got her into it after the first house that we bought together, and yeah, after that first one, she saw a massive gap between renoed and unrenoed,
Yeah.
and she's now on board. So our goals are very aligned with each other. So if we were to do something quite big, like make a purchase or purchase a caravan,
Yeah.
we have to be on the same page here. We both of us have to both agree. If one
Mhm.
of us disagree for whatever reason, we don't action it. So we our goals are very aligned. She understands it just as well as I do, or if not better,
Yeah.
from a data point of view. And she you can't get off domain. She loves domain.com.
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah, so I guess her upbringing is very similar to my childhood as well. The only difference was she was born overseas.
Right.
She came here as a child. I'm not exactly sure how old, but from there we do it together, and we did keep on buying houses towards our second or third or fourth, and we started to delegate a lot more jobs out. So an example of that was our PPLR. I actually really wasn't on the tools as much. I was on the tools here there, but we pretty much outsourced everything. We hired a plumber, a chippy, we even hired an electrician. I'm an electrician
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
for those that don't know. It was just time versus money. Honestly, it was I just couldn't. I can do it myself,
Mhm.
but there was just no one there to organize the critical parts, like the planning, the measuring, getting materials, and just make sure everything flowed smoothly. So there was minimal downtime between the trades. Of course, there were jobs where you could overlap two trades um, concurrently at once, but there were things that you have to do this job first before you move on to the next job. And that was my job, I guess. So I was just basically the project manager, the cleaner, the organizer, the measurer, and yeah, I was that was pretty much my job really. Maria's job was more the back end, so she when we were doing that project, she was running the finances, so she was in charge of keeping things afloat, I guess. So we were working closely with our broker, and we haven't we because we know the market very well where we live in Geelong. We roughly knew what you'll get valued at
Mhm,
once it's completed based on what sold around the corner, similar size block, similar size house, and so on.
mhm.
And from there, we projected that we'll make X, Y, Z, and we successfully pulled it off. And that's how we funded the car and caravan. Um, Caravans aren't cheap, and cars. Just going to be off topic now, but to do a lap around Australia, there's actually a lot of modifications you have to do to a car. You got like load rating for suspensions, tow capacity, and yeah, there's a whole heap of stuff. So
Right,
basically, that's how we funded our trip is through equity, and the rest is through cash flow to keep things afloat.
right.
And that's how you do it. But if you want to move on to growing the portfolio, simply we'll just stay in our jobs. Like if we really want to move and improve and take it to 12 properties or 14,
Mhm,
it's just honestly a game of equity and cash flow.
mhm.
Um, it's if you achieve those two, you'll be able to massage and keep on buying. But we just wanted to enjoy. We ain't getting younger. We just got married, so we wanted to see what's in our backyard, and we love traveling. It's awesome. So we just thought, yeah, like let's just take a year off and suss around our backyard. And Marie wants to go visit her grandparents, so that's since they're getting a bit older as well. So we're putting a huge focus on that, and it's something that money can't really buy. And yeah, I'd like to share that experience with her.
I love that. I love that. No, it's awesome how property has enabled you both from equity and cash flow perspective to do these things because sometimes if you don't invest in real estate correctly, it can become like a prison where you're locked into all these houses. On the face of it, looks great. You've got all these houses, but they're actually all super negatively geared and they're causing stress because you're having to pay, top up the costs every month, every year. But that doesn't seem to be the case for you guys. So you're doing something right. It's great to hear. On the point of delegation, you started to delegate, you even hired electricians when you're an electrician yourself. I'm curious, what and I know you mentioned it before, around, you don't want to pay $15,000 for a buyer's agent. That's why you did the course, because that's how much it would cost for diesel around Australia,
Yeah, yep.
if that's
Oh
correct.
yeah, yeah. It
I just
is
want to
expensive.
dig into that a little bit more, like, because you're starting this process of delegating a lot. Like, how did that conversation go down with Maria around, all right, well, I'm not going to delegate my next property purchase. Rather, I'm going to do the somewhat expensive course, $6,000 course, and learn to do it myself. Like, it seems to be a bit of a U-turn. Like, how did that conversation go down? Was she supportive, or was there skepticism, or just what was your rationale, I guess?
Yeah, okay. So the whole rationale behind it was, yeah, BA is around $15,000. So that will be a whole diesel bill for a whole lap around Australia, basically. The whole rationale behind it is we have done it previously before successfully. We've only done it in our backyards though. But we went through the process, and when we bought Frenchie, we were actually shopping. We were actually looking quite closely at Rockingham, and when we were looking there, I don't know what put us off. I think it was a lack of confidence, basically. But we
Mhm.
were looking in the right area. When we bought Frenchie, nailed it. But we saw Rockingham, the whole region, and Mandurah just skyrocketed. Um, quite. quite a big amount actually, very, very big
Huge.
amount. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Well, we're on the money here. We're actually on the money." And so from there, we're like, "Oh, like, like, let's don't, discredit ourselves. Like, we know what we're talking about. We've done it before. We crunch the numbers. We have a big spreadsheet of our entire portfolio that measures equity versus cash flow and yields in that."
Yeah.
And yeah, so we just looked at it, dive into it more and more and more. So we started at Rockingham as a region. We sussed every single suburb, and then we're looking, and then we're still questioning ourselves. So we're like, your course was a small price to pay, and just doing your course, it just reaffirmed that was the area to buy in. It didn't point specifically to Warnbro. It was a suburb, a few suburbs down, but our rationale was, Rockingham is so close to Perth CBD. It's probably about 35-minute drive. Okay, then I relayed that back to Geelong, where I live. Geelong to Melbourne is close. It's about an hour drive. Geelong's covered by coastal areas, and it has its own economy. It's a standalone economy. It's good for lifestyle, good for jobs, and relating it back to Rockingham, there were so many jobs there, so many jobs, close water, and it was just a no-brainer. Like, mate, we gotta go for this, and we went for it and absolutely nailed it. Like, we made quite a significant amount on equity, and I guess that's how we went about it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's so good to hear, and I don't think like everyone fully understands this, but there's kind of these like secondary cities, like
yeah,
obviously Geelong, close to Melbourne. There's Wollongong, close to Sydney. Newcastle, close to Sydney. There's Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, close to Brisbane. If you look at the price disparity between these secondary cities and the major capital city that they're close to, and you compare that to then Perth's equivalent, which is Rockingham or Mandurah, or even Bunbury if you want to go that far down, the price difference between Bunbury or Mandurah or Rockingham versus Perth is so far bigger than the price difference between Wollongong and Sydney, or Geelong and Melbourne, or Gold Coast, or Sunny Coast and Brisbane. And so what happens is that these things happen in cycles. The capital city goes up, and then these secondary cities follow suit. They catch up. And so and you timed it well. I mean, we're not really buying in the Rockingham region so much anymore. We started buying there kind of late 2020, early 2021. But there was so much value there that if Perth did well, it's almost guaranteed that these other townships or cities further south would do well. And I don't think by the time 2023 came around, I don't think it was any secret, right? And it's like, and
yeah,
so many people were buying there, and like you said before, what I like about it is that still to this day, most of the activity is by owner occupiers, not investors. And that really helps differentiate it from being a boom to a bubble. Because when there's just all investors piling in and no real owner occupiers, then that's where it starts to become quite inflated and quite volatile. Because investors can also leave anytime they want, but owner occupiers are sticky. That's where they want to live. So I think you've done really well in terms of timing, as you did in Queensland as well. And it's so good that you've got like a diversified portfolio now. I mean, everyone's different, but you probably don't want six properties in Geelong or like
no,
in one spot. Although I mean, you timed that really well when you bought there in 2015. I mean, I think 2016, 17 or 2016, 17, 18, those are the best years for that
yeah,
sort of that the whole town, like city, you could say, Geelong just changed. It just became
yeah,
a whole new beast. So you've done so well. I want to ask you as well, because you have done renovations. For someone who's watching or listening to this, and they do also want to spend 10, 20K, get a 50K, 100K return on investment in terms of renovation cost to total equity uplift, what are like three pieces of advice that you could give them from your own experience that could maybe help their life or make their life a bit easier?
yeah. Okay, well, that's a very good question. Put me on the spot here.
Sorry.
Three. No, no, you're right. You're right. Three piece of advice, you got to really, really know where you're buying. Okay. So where it is might be in your backyard, it might be interstate. You got to know that suburb inside out. So you got to know the pockets. You got to know where the premium pockets are in that suburb. You got to know where the lower end of pockets. And of course, do due diligence for flood maps and bushfires and all that sort of jazz. But as a starting point, you really got to know the demographic. You got to dive into the suburb. You got to know what sort of suburb it is, renter based, or is it mainly owner occupiers? So if it's young families, okay, they want probably minimum of 3 bedders, minimum of 2 bathrooms, okay? And you guys be able to see through the ugly colors, the floor plan. You guys see through the walls, okay? So everything can be fixed or improved on. It's just either going to cost you time or money at the end of the day. You
Yeah.
can be as creative as you want, but they're the two factors that will really hold you back. So I guess if you are after a reno project, first of all, you got to make sure you have enough of a deposit. First of all, second of all, you can't get a loan to this, so you got to be able to calculate: do you have enough surplus to fund the project? As in paying the trades, getting materials, or doing it yourself. But not only that, but you have to carry over the monthly or weekly repayments in holding that property.
Mm.
And from there, you do your own fees, I guess. And okay, is it worth my time or no? I'm making $20,000 and I'm outlaying $80,000 worth of my money, 3 months of my time. It's probably not worth it. So you got to know where to draw the line. Okay. So I guess that answers one. Um, Second of all, you got to know what you're good at and your current situation. So is a job flexible with time off? Okay. It's very hard to do it outside of work hours after your 9 to 5, then go work on your house. Realistically, you're working up for like 2 hours and you're going to have dinner. Then you repeat the next thing the next day or go to work. It's just not sustaining. So
Yeah.
you got to weigh up, okay, is my employer flexible enough to take 2 months, 1 month off to actually punch it out, put a really good dent into this reno? And second of all, your skill set. Are you someone that's hands on? And when you do these jobs, you want to still do a good job. You don't want to be doing a DIY tile and it looks dodgy or it doesn't look appealing, because you're not only wasting your time, but you're also wasting your money. And you want to be able to produce a nice quality finished product, because end of the day, you want to suck the equity out, you'll get it valued. All these things do play a factor.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you might even sell it one day. And people do notice these things. Like, if you got a tire sticking out, it's a trip hazard. It's not only a trip hazard, but stuck with the tenants as well. It's a potential risk. Third thing, what I look for is floor plans. That's the first thing I look at, floor plans. Yep. So when I read a floor plan, and my wife and I, she actually learned a lot of me, and I've also learned a lot of her.
Mhm.
She mainly she picks all the colors. I'm the one that does the foundation, I guess. Yeah, the essentials. Yeah. So when I look at floor plan, speak to a local chippy or speak to a local structural engineer. But what you'll find is typical houses, there's different type of trusses. Newer houses, the trusses, the load bearing is loaded on the outside walls, whereas traditional older houses are loaded on the inside. Okay. For a truss, it usually runs one way. So from looking at the floor plan, you will know from experience what walls you can take out, which walls you can't take out, and which one's easier. I mean, and at the end of the day, anything's possible. You can remove any walls you want. It just depends how much money you got to pay an engineer and a carpenter, I guess. But there is some walls are easier to knock down than others.
Mhm.
And knocking down a wall, it's just free space. It's free space. Like, you open it up and it just feels a lot bigger. And you haven't really done much. You haven't created extra space, I think. It's just opens up, just flows nicely. So that's number one thing I do is that's well, look at floor
Just
plan
to
is the
allow the
first thing
house
I
to
go for.
breathe, right?
Second of all, yeah, second of all, you can be a bit more creative. Add a bathroom ensuite. I like that. So there might be some wasted space in the hallway that you might be able to reconfigure. Quick tip for you viewers. So to add it on suite, it is very cost effective if you do it back to back with a laundry or bathroom or somewhere that's already got its services. So all you gotta do is back to back, minimal disruptions. The service is already there. You just gotta work it out, see if it works out with your floor plan. And of course, look, you have to do your measurements precisely because you can't just have a door half open. You got to. It has to be um, up to building codes and standards because
Mm,
you can't just have a half door that opens and hits toilet seat or something like that. Yeah, so you
yeah.
have to make sure the floor plan actually works. So you have to be very savvy and precise with your measurements. But yeah, so that's what we do. Floor plans number one, sus back to back, and just open it right up, clean it all. We just generally, if we do a reno, we do it all at once. We don't do room by room. We one day, all we do is demo work.
Mm.
The next day, all we do is patching work. The next day, so basically, you just want to do one trade per day. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They try to do one room by room. So it's just too time consuming. Like, then if you do room by room, you're doing demo, then you got to get a little bit of paint, then you got to paint that, then you got to patch it. Then you're suddenly a carpenter, then you got to do the doors. It's more the cleanup and setup time that kills you. So if you do a reno, pick up one tool once. That one day is what you do for the entire day. And that's how you speed things up and just wipe it all out at once, do a complete demo, then yeah, just you have a process. You want to do
Right,
it, time is money, so you want to do it as
right.
quick as possible.
Right. That's great. It's great advice. I mean, I think everyone should consider, even if you're brand new and everything that Chris was saying, you're like, oh my God, this sounds really like crazy and difficult, and I don't want to do this. At least buy something that you have the potential to add value down the line,
Mm,
because you may not have the skills or experience or confidence to do it now. But if you buy something with value add potential, maybe in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, 4 years' time, you can do it, and then at that time, make 50, 100, 150K of equity that may be the deposit for you to get into the next subsequent house. So no, that's great work. And what's on the horizon for you guys, Chris? Like, you're obviously traveling right now, so you're probably just taking it a bit easy. But when are you buying your seventh property, or looking ahead 5 or 10 years? What's the property plan?
Um, Property plan, we are actively looking to buy right now.
Oh,
It
nice.
just has to be, I guess, the right house. There are areas where it's very, very hot still, but there are areas where it's more of a buyer's market. So we are just exploring all options. We buy for the long term, so um, we look at the essential fundamentals. So we are looking to buy in owner-occ areas, um, somewhere that has a strong economy, somewhere that stands on its own feet, lifestyle factors, close to work areas. But yeah, so we don't really know where yet exactly. We're still analysing all of Australia. But yeah, we are actively looking. This year, it's just more of a reset. So we're just floating around WA at the moment. Probably not really sure, to be honest. We're just absolutely winging it every day. But we do want to go to Europe and visit Maria's grandparents.
Yeah,
So that's probably our main priority, I guess, is to go
nice.
Europe and buy the seventh house. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I love that. I mean, I love that you can be relaxing and resetting and traveling around, but at the same time, because you have the skills, you can just keep your finger on the pulse and just do the analysis, the data analysis, looking at all of Australia
Yeah.
just remotely and being like, okay, do I want to buy here and or there? And it's just a really stress-free way of property investing. It's really cool. Last question, I'll just ask a little bit of a cheeky one. If someone's in your kind of shoes like you were before, like let's say they want to buy remotely in another state or city, they're kind of lacking confidence. you obviously did the course. What words of advice would you give them about the course?
Okay, so I guess first of all, you gotta get very familiar with the geographic location of wherever you want to buy. Um, know where west is, know where east, north, and usually every city is set up very similar in a way. You usually got a commercial sector, you got industrial sector. So just really know where they are and really know where the owner ops like to live. Um, and from there, really look at the data. Um, it will really paint a clear picture for you on where to go. It'll give you all those data metrics, know the imbalance between demand and supply. So once you figure that out, which is taught in the course, you'll know where to buy exactly in that suburb. Um, and from that, you'll pick the suburb and you'll be able to nail the region in that suburb. From there, it's all about house factors then. Four better, which orientation's facing, how can you add value, what walls you can knock down, what improvements can you make. But yeah, I guess that's where to start really. But yeah, I guess that's a good start. And there's plenty of information out there. And on your free YouTube channel, there's a wealth of information. You The more knowledge you know, the better. But really get to know the geographic location of where you're targeting is probably my number one advice.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, no, I mean, I just want to say thank you for making time, Chris, and congratulations on your large portfolio. And like I said at the start, it's really cool how you're doing this to aid your lifestyle, not take away from it. You both have immigrant kind of heritage, and it's so great that you and your partner have similar values, and you're going to see your grandparents, and just being a solid nice guy. I mean, kudos to you, a great example for all property investors, not least because you also take care of your tenants. And I know that's something you're passionate about when we were talking offline last week. And I think that's something that we can all learn and imbibe as well. So yeah, just congratulations on all your success, and I'm looking forward to what you do next.
Yeah, thank you very much for this interview and all the best. Thank you very much.
And thank you everyone for watching or listening. It's probably the best background we've had for any speaker that I've interviewed. The coolest background ever. Hopefully you gained a lot of intel and inspiration and education, and also like just kind of how down to earth property investment can be. It doesn't have to be super stressful or for people who are always on the go. You can see how relaxed Chris is, how level headed he is, and just how I mean, his lifestyle has changed a lot because of all of his hard work in investing in real estate. There's more than 120 client interviews on the client results playlist on YouTube. Like I always say, honestly, don't mind if you do the course or not, but please go through and watch them because you'll learn so much from other fantastic people, just like Chris, and you'll learn and you'll also be inspired. And I think that's what it's all about. My name's PK. Here's Chris, and thank you again for watching.
Thank you very much.